This episode is sponsored by JDAQA Software Testing, your scalable solution for manual, automated, security, and performance testing. Check us out at jdaqa.com. And with that, let's get on with the show.
This is The First Customer, hosted by Jay Agner.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the First Customer Podcast. My name is Jay Agner. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined somebody I've been chasing around for a long time. Finally got her on. Catherine Griffin, CEO and founder of Impactable, not Impactable X anymore. How are you?
I'm great, Jay. How are you? It's good to be
I'm
here.
great. I was thinking about the conference I saw you at, and there's certain events you go to and you just see one person over and over again everywhere you turn. Like, you were my person. From inside to outside to like out on the street, we kept
Mhm.
seeing each other. So I think we were destined to have you on the show. So thank
Yeah.
you for your time today. I first saw you, man, was it the previous conference maybe that I saw you do a pitch? Were you at the PAX, maybe the year before at the
I was
PAX?
at PAX last year. Yep.
Okay. And I think you're up on stage.
Yep.
And you have such a demanding stage presence. It was very cool to see somebody just kind of like, I felt like I was watching like a TED talk or something. Like, it was very tight, like everything was like crisp. It was a really great presentation and it stood out to me. So I'm very happy to have you on. It's like, you're just a great business owner in Philadelphia. So what is Impactable, just to kick us off?
Thank you for saying that, Jay. Yeah. So Impactable is a predictive impact analytics and reporting platform for founders and funders. So we have a double-sided platform, one side that serves private companies, founders, startups that use technology to affect change in the world in some way. The Teslas and Beyond Meats of the world pre-IPO. And then on the other side of the platform, we work with the investors, the accelerators, intermediary groups, anybody who manages a bunch of companies. And we enable them to aggregate impact across their portfolios and easily report out to LPs.
Interesting. All right, we're gonna get to that. I want to rewind. Where did you come from, and did that have an impact on you being an entrepreneur?
Oh, for sure. So prior to launching Impactable, I led a fund and accelerator here in Philadelphia. We worked with hundreds of early stage social entrepreneurs across impact verticals. And we led two global innovation initiatives, one with Bloomberg Philanthropies focused on urban innovation. We won a Mayor's Challenge Award from Bloomberg in partnership with the City of Philadelphia and the Wharton Social Impact Initiative. Basically, it was our job to bring companies to Philadelphia with technologies that could address Philly's public safety challenges, accelerate them, and ultimately deploy them, launch them in Philly with Bloomberg behind them.
Hmm.
Um, and that project was so successful that we then designed a similar one, this time in partnership with the Obama administration, specifically their climate data initiative, which was really a broad call to action for resources in the absence of climate legislation at the time. And so, again, it was our job to sort of leverage all of these resources that were offered by over 80 cross sector partners like NASA and NOAA and Google and all these big corporates and channel them towards startup companies that could make use of them in interesting ways. And it was over the course of these two programs that our partners started asking, how much impact can we actually expect from investing so much in these companies? And so we sat down with the founders. We asked them simple questions. They couldn't answer them. We looked around for resources that we could offer them, but those were really designed for public companies. And so it was this problem and this need that really prompted us to develop then the scaffolding behind what is now Impactable, because companies used it, came back to us and told us it helped them win pitch competitions and accelerate their growth and close their rounds. And the investors came to me and said, we want these analytics from every company in our portfolio. You should really build a business. So I was given some grant funding and really set out to see if there was there, and turned out this is a really big problem and people were really interested in what we had to offer.
Wow. Where did you grow up, by the way?
I grew up outside the city in Chestnut Hill.
Okay. And did you have any entrepreneurs in your life growing up that kind of led you to down this path of impact and starting a business?
Not really. I mean, my family's all in the medical field, and so there's definitely some entrepreneurship required there. But I went to Penn for undergrad and learned about of the state environmental degradation, what was going on, and just sort of found it fascinating, and it didn't add up to me that there were these massive, very sort of existential challenges, and lots of smart people had been working on them for decades with trillions of dollars in funding, and the needle just seemed to be moving in the wrong direction. Like, that just didn't add up to me, and I wanted to find out why, and wanted to really invest my career in something that I thought could have meaning and purpose behind it. And so I'm a bit of a black sheep in the family.
I can't imagine that's true. It's an interesting thing. I mean, how do if you go make an app and you go sell it and somebody buys you out, you get $1 million and everybody's happy. But yours is more, you know, this broad change. And I always struggle to understand, how do you is there progress that you can measure that you're going to feel like you've made an impact on such a big scale, right? Is there a needle that's going to move that you're going to go, you know what? I built a platform that did X, and whatever the industry is, whatever the problem is you're trying to solve, had some sort of impact. How do you get gratification and like feel like you're actually moving the needle when we're attacking these giant, massive problems, right? Because you're attacking a small problem, you can get some wins and you can understand it. But how do you get traction and feel like you've done some things in a big space like that?
Well, for us as a company, we are looking at the number of companies on the platform for whom we enable investment. So we're here to drive capital towards the companies that have the greatest potential for impact at scale. And on the investor side, of course, it's volume of capital managed with this kind of analytical rigor on the impact side. And it's also about new money unlocked from the sidelines. I think one of the reasons why the impact field isn't even bigger, and by the way, it's growing rapidly, but as a percentage of global assets under management, it's still relatively small. I think one of the reasons for that is just impact is still a little bit nebulous, it's abstract. There isn't as much analytical rigor around it as there is with traditional financials, and that's one of the problems we're here to solve. And I think if we can bring it to the field in a big way, I think we can unlock more capital from the sidelines. But in terms of what we do on the platform for our users, is we actually size the problem. If we're talking about carbon emissions reductions, right, in the US, like how many total carbon emissions are there year over year from a given industry, and to what degree can a company make a dent in that? And so those are numbers that we can pull and offer to the user, calculations that we can do. And so part of it is to sort of bring it down to earth a little bit. Like, yeah, these problems do feel massive, and it's hard to know whether the work you're doing is really making a dent. And so we try to bring visibility to all of that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Hmm.
And just to that point specifically, give me the big, like, three or five, like, what are the big things you guys are trying to tackle, right? I mean, carbon emissions and, like, people say climate change, that means a million different things. And then there's like, social justice, and like, there's all these different things that are just like these big hulking problems. What are the biggest ones that you guys see or you are trying to go after?
Well, yeah, I mean, climate tech is a big one. There's so much money going into that vertical right now. Ag tech is another one, which includes meat alternatives. We're seeing a ton of seafood alternatives, cell-based meat, plant-based meat, even one that is air-based, believe it or not. There's all kinds of innovations happening on that side. And then justice tech is another big one. We do a lot of work with Village Capital and other organizations that support entrepreneurs that helping people returning from prison navigate their experience in the US. So that's a really big one. I think 2020 really put a spotlight on, racial equity and social equity and some criminal justice reform. So that's been really cool to see. I'd say those are the big three.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I just trying to, like you said, it is nebulous, especially to people who don't really think at that level, and you
Yeah.
see it on the news or you hear about it, and it's like, what is this impact we're trying to work on? But I think those are 3 good ones.
Well, so the UN drafted 17 goals that we want to hit by 2030, right? And it's around quality education and reduced inequalities and certainly climate, no poverty, things like that, which are very big goals. And right now, we will have no idea whether we actually hit those goals in 2030 or to what degree.
Right,
Um, but what I find to be most exciting are the companies that are using technology to achieve these goals or to at least advance them in really efficient ways that aren't necessarily dependent on philanthropy, right? These are venture backable companies that are growing at venture tech rates.
right.
Yeah, it's incredible what's happening. Um, and it's sort of flipping the script, disrupting old industries that are at risk now because of the state.
Right.
Um, yeah, and so creating these new markets and unlocking like tremendous value. Everybody's familiar with, EV charging stations and infrastructure, right? That's just like one example. Um, Obviously, the solar industry is like, well, it's pretty matured at this point.
Right.
But there are all kinds of other industries that are now popping up that are relatively new, but recognize resource constraints out in the world and have, found a way to create something out of nothing. It's really extraordinary.
So who was your first customer?
Well, we've had several iterations, right? So when we first started, when we really first started, it was at the accelerator and fund that I ran. And so our first customer then was this guy who I read about now in the New York Times. Extraordinary entrepreneur, amazing company. His name is Jimmy Chen. He founded a company called Propel. Basically, they have built a mobile app for eligible but unenrolled food stamp beneficiaries to apply, enroll, and manage food stamps remotely without having to go to some government office. They're now backed by Andreessen and, you know, I think Serena Ventures. I mean, they've got incredible investors behind them and they're crushing it. That was our first ever customer. We recently launched software though, and so we were sort of born again. And so now we're onboarding users to the software. And our very first customer actually was the OPEC fund, believe it or not.
Wow.
They were running a pilot project in Madagascar for like clean cook stoves. And they were the first on the platform.
How did you get them?
A referral. So we had built a network of partners over the years and had sort of established a reputation. And when it came time to kick off this pilot project, we were the first people they called. Yeah, networks are enormous. And so I might be sort of an outlier in that respect. It's not like was never something that I sort of dreamt up in the shower one day and decided I wanted to build, right? It was something that really very organically emerged out of our experience on the ground. And therefore there was a network around it. There were people who said they needed it and people who said they wanted it. Um, so yeah, when we've had new versions of ourselves, the network's been there to really drive traffic.
Has there been people who said they wanted it, but then when you built it, they didn't want it anymore or they weren't interested? I am curious, like the flip side of that, right? It's like, 'cause you do hear that, like you hear that's a common pitfall of like people saying they want something, or if they're giving something away for free or they're doing free trials, and then people, they
Yeah.
get to the paid point and then people go, well, it's not for me, right? Does
Yeah.
that happen to you guys?
Yeah. Yeah, it has. I mean, we started building a wait list in Q1 of this year and had compiled like 250 companies that had themselves signed up for this thing.
Hmm.
And like 10% of them ultimately were really interested when it came to it.
Hmm,
I'm not sure what that is, if it's a communication issue or what, timing issue. And then certainly with free trials. But, this is we sort of straddle two very different markets, right? And so one thing I've noticed on the founder side is that timing is really everything. We talk to somebody who's interested, but they're not going to be in a position to actually pay for another year.
right,
And a lot of them do end up circling back. A lot of them we don't ever hear from, but a lot of them do circle back, or they're not in a position, to pay after the free trial's up, but we'll hear from them again in a few months. But yeah, it's really just honing in on, ideal customer profile, I think, and all of the drivers of that, which is something I think you never I don't know if you ever fully get it. I've asked people about product market fit and they're like, you know it when you have it, but it's hard to define. So we're just trying to learn as much as we possibly can about the profile of the people who we know love what we do. Use it every day, refer it to their friends. Like, I want to know everything about that person. And I want to try to invest all my time in finding more people just like them and try to stay away from the people who say one thing and kind of do another.
right. Who was your first investors? You mentioned you grant money, like, and you're going after new investments and new rounds. Who was your first? Yeah, because that's a different type of customer. We talked about the first second before the show. It's a different. I mean, you do it for the platform, right? It's a different. So you have two ICPs, really, right? You have your founder side and then your funder side. So it's like,
That's right.
who was the first one, and has that? What have you learned? Have you changed that as you've gone? Has it morphed as you've gone over time? Like I don't, like I said, I know nothing about the investor side of the world, so this is very interesting to me.
Well, so yeah, we sell to funds and we sell to accelerators. And so our first customer on the fund side, I think, was the Decarceration Fund, which is a fund out of Philly that invests in justice impacted individuals with technologies designed to ameliorate the experience of navigating their criminal justice system. I've known these guys a really long time and they've worked with us from the very beginning. So, again, relationships, and Philly is fantastic for this. I
Hmm.
find it's a really good place to get first customers. Yeah, but
Yeah, I think that's a key point too, and it's something that I've circled back on in our business. Was like, and somebody said it in one of my podcasts, was like owning your backyard, right? Like,
Mhm.
don't shortchange where you're at, because
Yeah.
there's, and I call it the hometown discount, right? Like you at least get a conversation, right? I mean, you noticed my hat when I got on. Like, I mean, I
Mhm.
can't tell you how many conversations I've started
Mhm.
that led the business with Go Birds, right? I mean, it's
Mhm.
like there's no reason not to.
Yeah.
Have you tried to branch out of Philly and then come back? Have you just stayed here and just tried to kind of grow it here first? Like, what's been your plan, location, geo, plan?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, our customer base is global, and with COVID, that really enabled us to more easily build relationships internationally. But when push comes to shove with first customers, and I said, there's been various iterations of what we've done. Philly people are always the first to step up, or when there's a challenge or a question or, some networking, like advising I need, Philly is always the first to step up. So it's a phenomenal community I've found. But yeah, I mean, we work with companies and funds all over the world. Um, yeah, we've just really gotten our footing here. And so I feel especially loyal to Philly people for a lot of reasons. They're good people, but they've been amazing from a business standpoint.
How do you market at all? Are you doing like, is it direct sales? Is it conferences? Is it a mix of a bunch of things? Like, how are you going out there and trying to attack finding two completely separate groups of ICPs at the same time? Or is it at the same time?
Yeah, so to clarify, so we've prioritized the founder market first
Okay.
because everything we offer to investors is an extension of how the founder uses the platform. We generate founder portfolio level portfolio company analytics. And so if the founder can't navigate the platform, if it doesn't delight them, if it doesn't offer value for them, nothing on the investor side matters.
All right.
So we strategically decided to target that market first. We are now shifting to the fund market because I think the value proposition is clear, the ICP is easier to define, it's an easier market to sell into. So, yeah, we've tried not to target both markets equally at the same time. But from a marketing perspective, I mean, we acquire customers a number of ways. One is through direct outreach, one is through like channel partners. So we work with a lot of accelerators like, Techstars. We'll offer webinars and workshops. We have lots of people who refer others to us, which we love. And then we're building, the SEO behind our website. We've just started experimenting with paid ads, and we're not investing heavily in there. We're just very much at the testing phase of that. We have a lot more to learn. Conferences are great, they're just expensive. I would love to be able to travel and take time out of the office and really show up in a meaningful way at some conferences, but they're all very international and they tend to have a pretty steep price tag attached to them. So that'll be something we invest in more, I think, in the future. But, I've been delighted with the number of inbound leads we've gotten. And it seems like there's a bit of a tipping point happening. We went to a conference actually in October and it was phenomenal. And ever since then, we've been getting inbound interest from funds all over the country, people all over the world, people we met there, people we didn't meet there. So I don't know. We also operate in a relatively small market, compared to others, of course. I think it's easier to stand out with a great product in a more niche market, one that's definitely growing, but it's not like a commodity by any sense of the imagination. So,
Right.
yeah, I mean, the marketing is something I want to invest so much more in, but we really want to invest once we know what works best, and
Mhm.
so we're running a lot of tests right now.
All right, we'll have one more question for you. Non-business related.
Mhm.
Um, if you could do anything on earth and you knew you couldn't fail, what would it be?
I would set up a network of global animal sanctuaries for endangered species.
I love that. That's a
It's something
first.
it's amazing.
Endangered animal species. Is there a favorite endangered animal you have?
No, I
Just all
mean,
of them? There's a lot. I mean, the rate
there
we're
are
going, there's a lot. The
there
rate
are a
we're
lot.
going, there's gonna be more every I think there are more every second at the rate we're going. That's a good one. I haven't heard that. That'll go down the list.
Yeah, it's a dream one day.
All right. Well, if people want to find out more about you, more about Impactable, how do they do that?
Go to impactablex.com.
Beautiful. LinkedIn, are you active on LinkedIn if people want to
Oh,
reach
for
out to
sure.
you on there?
Find me on LinkedIn as well,
All right.
please. Yeah.
All right. Well, you were fantastic. Like I said, I hope people check you out. I really love seeing you on stage, and that's always a pleasure seeing you in person. So, I hope you get some more conferences, and we'll see you again soon. Okay. Thanks for being on, Catherine.
Thanks, Jay.
See ya. Bye bye.